Hello, so this is day 12 of the little videos I'm doing in the run up to International Long COVID Awareness Day on the 15th of March. And following on from yesterday, when I talked about the gut motility, I'm going to go over to the bladder because that can be a real issue when you're living with long COVID, when you're living with anything really that can affect the autonomic nervous system, because as I said, with the bowel and the bladder are a part of the autonomic process, something that we get signals for. We do without thinking, in a sense. So, well, we do without thinking. So people do report having a lot of frequency, so going to the toilet a lot more for to empty the bladder than usual. The overactive bladder, so the bladder feels really irritated and wants to empty. And it's not like I said, unusual in lots of different conditions, not just long COVID, but I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit and maybe give a couple of tips on how to help with that bladder irritant sort of feeling. So there are things that can be done, as I said. So the bladder gets irritated and wants to empty, and it can be that it's causing, the irritation causes the bladder to squeeze and give that sensation that it needs to empty far more frequently than normal. So a bit of anatomy and physiology: the bladder is flat and it actually fills up as would a balloon, and it has a capacity between 400 and 600 mils, depending on the person. That does come down to how old a person is, etc. And the bladder will fill at about 60 to 100 mils per hour. So if you think about what it can hold and how much it fills, and over the time period, you should only really need to go empty your bladder every 4 to 6 hours. Now, whenever I tell people that, they're like, "Oh my God, I go far more than that," and people do, because we've got the age old, we're going out, go to toilet, you're going to bed, go to the toilet. We instigate going to the toilet behaviourally, rather than thinking about the bladder and its signals. So when the signals are disrupted, when there's some dysfunction in those signals, it can make it even harder. So people tend to not drink. But when you don't drink enough fluids, your bladder becomes irritated anyway, and it wants to empty. And there will always be a little something in that bladder. And if you think about, if you had a teaspoon of water and you spilt it on the floor or onto some fabric or wherever, it would spread as if it was a lot rather than being a little teaspoon. So a little goes a long way, if you like. So if you have like any leakage or anything like that, it can seem really excessive. So we don't want the bladder irritated, so we want it to be hydrated. We want to make sure we've got fluids going in there, because again, the fluid that we get rid of are the toxins. We're getting rid of the stuff we don't want within our body, so it's really important to make sure we're doing that. There's fluid types that can be irritating and cause the bladder to spasm, squeeze, and make it want to go empty far more frequently. Those include, of course, alcohol, caffeine, citrus, so like your pure oranges, lemons, lime flavour, the citrus fruit flavours can be real bladder irritants. Tomatoes are also a bladder irritant, as is chocolate, so like obviously hot chocolate as well, things like that, because again, chocolate has caffeine in it and we forget about that. Fizzy drinks are a bladder irritant and what have you as well. So it's thinking about taking in a good amount of fluid. So we're talking around 2.5 to 3 litres of fluid per day. It depends on you as a person, how old you are again, and whether you are active and you're sweating and you need to replace that. The lack of fluid. If somebody's got another condition as well, like myself, I have POTS, I have to drink a lot of fluid every day, then there are those kind of exceptions. So this is just a little bit of information. anything I do say, as I've said before, and I talk about, please do check with a health professional. And if you are having problems with your bladder, please don't be embarrassed by that. You know, we can all be affected by these things, and it's definitely worth accessing some support and help. In terms of bladder and bowel services, talking about the UK, there are services across the UK that are really helpful, and although the condition is what it is, we'll call it, you know, long COVID, treatments are very similar in terms of what's happening to cause the bladder to be overreactive, cause bladder frequency, or anything else that you might be experiencing. People often will get up far too frequently during the night. So please don't hide from your fluids. Please don't stop having the fluids and hydrating yourself, because that is really, really important. When you do start drinking fluids, and if you haven't particularly had, you've been reducing your fluids yourself because you've been worried about going to the toilet so much, you will go to the toilet a little bit more first, because your bladder's not used to it. And it's not used to holding the capacity. So, but the more the body gets used to it, the more it will react in line with that, and that should reduce. We get two signals to void the bladder. So the first one is just telling us that it's almost time to empty the bladder. It's the second call to void that is the one that we should be going on, because that's when the bladder is actually full. So it's good to kind of note those things. But obviously I would never want anybody to be in a position where they didn't think they would make it to the toilet. But as I said, these can be, you know, useful tips, but please do seek support if you are experiencing any of these these things. And as I said, hydrate. I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.